So you're going to get a car. You've already spent lots of time beforehand to research and compare models, specs, and prices. You think you know what to look for, but then the salesperson mentions engine placement. Should you care? Does the location of the engine matter at all? Actually, it is important, and today I'll explain why. The engine is the heaviest part of any car. So, where an engine sits on a car impacts the car's dynamics. When we talk about vehicle dynamics, it generally refers to the car's behavior or reaction to driver inputs, like acceleration and braking. There are three main locations possible for an engine. There's the front, mid, and back. Each has its own pros and cons. So let's just dive right in. Most consumers are familiar with seeing the engine at the front of the car. Ever wonder why this position is so common? Henry Ford set the industry standard with his front engine Model Ts, and down to today, most cars in the U.S. have front engines. There's several advantages. First, placing the engine at the front allows the car to have more cabin space, so passengers can enjoy a more comfortable interior. Plus, with a front engine, you get more cargo space in the back, so more trunk space for your groceries and your kids' football gear. And you could even pack enough suitcases for a whole year when you're really just going for a weekend trip. Another benefit is that noise level in the cabin is generally lower since the engine is located farther away from the passengers. Another advantage that's worth pointing out is that a front engine layout can help prevent or reduce significant injuries to a driver in the event of a head-on collision. If another car or object were to collide with you head-on, then as a driver, you have a better bet if the other car collides with the engine at the front rather than a front trunk of a car. And here's why. Cars with front engines have more crumple zone or crush zone, which is an area of the car that's designed to crush or crumple when you hit with significant force. You can think of it like a buffer that helps cushion the blow of a collision. The more crumple zone, the better, because the zone extends your deceleration time. In other words, it helps you stop relatively slower rather than suddenly, so you and your passengers feel less force than you otherwise would. These extra few tenths of a second can help prevent otherwise significant injuries. And this has been verified by various crash tests, involving, of course, crash test dummies. Also, front engines are generally cheaper to manufacture, easier to maintain, and more accessible during repairs. Did you know that placing the engine in front of a front-wheel drive car is a very effective way to reduce power loss? That's because the distance between the engine and the front wheels is short, which minimizes power loss from rotating components, and this saves fuel and money. Front-engine front-wheel cars generally have the best traction on the front wheels, since the engine weight is just above the wheels. That's a big advantage, especially in the snow. But at the same time, if a driver were to suddenly brake, the force of gravity of the entire car will shift forward to the front wheels, which is already loaded by the engine weight. This causes less weight and less traction in the rear wheels, so it limits the ability of the rear tires to brake efficiently. The result is your car could coast forward a few more feet than otherwise, which isn't something you want in an emergency. Front engine cars also tend to understeer. Understeer is when a car turns less sharply than intended, and it's due to excess weight or torque. It happens when the front wheels slip and lose traction while cornering. In that case, changing the trajectory can be difficult, especially if the road is really wet or icy. Despite this, the front-engineered cars remain very popular. Rear-wheel drive cars with front-mounted engines tend to handle corners better because of the weight distribution being more even. But these can also experience understeering on slippery roads because there's not much weight on the drive wheels. Still, understeering is considered to be safer and more manageable than oversteering. So let's talk about rear-mounted engines. They're the least popular of the three layouts, but they do have their fans. A popular car that originally came with a rear engine is the Volkswagen Beetle. Volkswagen kept the rear engine layout from 1938 all the way to 2011. That's more than 70 years, although they did change the layout to front engine afterwards. A rear-wheel drive rear engine car also has better acceleration than a front engine car. That's because most of the car's weight sits at the back, which creates maximum pressure on the rear tires. This causes the rear tires to have more surface contact, which improves traction. Acceleration performance is one of the reasons why performance cars are typically rear-wheel drive. You also get exceptional braking performance on the rear engine cars because the engine weight is above the rear tires. When you decelerate, the weight of the car gets transferred to the front tires while the weight of the engine retains pressure on the rear tires too. This means all four tires get involved when you brake, not just the front one. So you have great acceleration and braking with a rear engine car. The weight of the back contributes to both characteristics, but it is also the cause behind the rear engine car's biggest issue, which is oversteering. You guessed it. It's the opposite of understeering. Oversteering is when a car turns more than you intended to. When a driver makes a tight turn, the weight of the back makes the rear swing around and the rear tires lose traction and therefore skid. You can imagine it like a fishtail moving. Oversteering can be more dangerous than understeering in general, especially when the road is wet or icy. Correcting an oversteer is harder than correcting an understeer. In fact, it requires specific driving skills and experience. This is one of the reasons why rear-engine cars are the most difficult to drive compared to the other engine layout options. Then there's the mid-engine car. With this layout, we now place the engine, which is the heaviest part of the car, between the front and rear wheels. This is the most ideal location in terms of weight distribution, center of gravity, and superior traction. This is what gives the mid-engine car its agility and maneuverability. To understand how this works, try holding a hammer with one hand, but hold it at the base of the handle. Now swing it back and forth. You can quickly see it gets harder to change direction as you swing it back and forth. Okay, so now try holding the hammer just below the head and try to swing it. It's much easier because there's less directional resistance to the movement when most of the weight is at the center rather than at one of the ends. It's the same physics that come into play with cars. If you place the engine, again the heaviest part of the car, at just one end, whether it's the front or the back, it's harder to turn the car than if you were to place it at the center of the axle. This is the very reason why mid-engine cars have superior agility and can corner easily with a fair amount of traction under acceleration. And it has very good handling at high speeds. It also has better deceleration and braking because the engine's weight is almost evenly distributed across all four tires, rather than overloading most of the weight across just two tires, while the other two tires have much less. But this mid-engine placement has its share of disadvantages too. If you're going to place the engine near the center of the car, well, that means you need to place it behind the front seats. That's why many mid-engine cars have just two seats, and even then, legroom is tight. So you can see why these cars cater to people who want speed and flash rather than comfort. A main drawback of mid-engine cars is the sky-high price tag. Sports cars, supercars, and hypercars have mid-engine layouts. And everyone knows these types aren't cheap. For example, just to change the carbon ceramic brake system would cost you between $10,000 and $18,000. So imagine how much it'll be to replace the engine. And we're not even talking about the cost of these cars themselves. Few examples of mid-engine cars include Acura NSX, Alfa Romeo 4C Spider, Audi R8, BMW i8, Bugatti Chiron, Chevy Corvette C8, Ferrari 488 GTB, Ford GT, Lamborghini Aventador S, and McLaren 570S. So there you have it. Now which one would you buy? When it comes to engine placement, you need to consider your personal lifestyle. A front-engine car is great if you're a family person or someone who values cabin space and comfort the most, and you care about safety and overall cost. But if your priority is speed, agility, and superior braking performance, and if you don't care about comfort or price, you might like mid-engine. Or if you have a need for acceleration and braking, then you might want to consider a rear-engine vehicle. There's no one-size-fits-all. If you like this episode, please subscribe to my channel for more technology and history videos. Thank you.